You might be on the roof and you might be harnessed in, but my photo might not show the harness. There's that context of like that gets posted to TRG and somebody is like, hey, he's not being safe. Having that pro to know, oh, let me just move 3 feet this way and kind of tilt. Now I can see the harness. That's really important.
Welcome to today's Modern Craftsman podcast. Everybody says take more pictures of your work, but nobody tells you what to shoot, when to shoot it, or what to do with it after. So today we are going to break that down so your photos actually work for you instead of just living in your phone. If you guys and girls have been seeing a change in the Modern Craftsman content lately, we have a new partner who's been handling all things editing, content, social, Instagram, YouTube, alongside Doug and Paul over at Motif Media, and that is Dave. You may have seen him comment on YouTube posts. Don't worry, he is a vetted, approved commenter. He is part of the Modern Craftsman team. Today we have him on the podcast to talk about photography in construction and how you can do a better job of documenting your projects to help protect your business, market your business, and hopefully make yourself some money. Please enjoy this podcast. And Dave, thanks for everything. This podcast is brought to you by NAHB. Are you ready to level up your craft? The NAHB International Builder Show is the place to take your craft to the next level. It's all happening February 17th through the 19th in Orlando with the hottest new products, innovations, and best networking in the business. And get this, Modern Craftsman listeners get first dibs on 50 free IBS Expo passes. It's only one pass per registration on a first-come, first-served basis. Go to buildershow.com/moderncraftsman to claim your free pass before they're gone. And a note, that's builders, plural, show.com/moderncraftsman. This podcast is brought to you by Buildertrend. Remodelers, if you've ever wished you could peek behind the curtain of a top firm's process, well, here's your chance. Buildertrend teamed up with Danielle and Michael Gutelli from Clark and Aldine to walk through the pre-construction workflow they use to keep clients informed, manage approvals, and set up every project for success. And these two are dialed in. They're award-winning for a reason, and they're literally handing you the playbook. Whether you're trying to tighten up your own system or just want to see how the pros do it, this webinar is worth every minute. Watch it on demand at buildertrend.com/MC Preconstruction. This podcast is brought to you by Andersen. Are you looking to elevate your building skills and stay ahead in the industry? Look no further than the ProViews blog from Andersen Windows and Doors. This blog is a treasure trove for professionals in the building space, and it often features articles and videos created by industry pros. Whether you're searching for detailed technical documents or handy tips and tricks, Andersen's blog has got you covered. It's designed to help you become better at your craft with insights from industry experts and practical advice you can apply to the job. If you're serious about honing your skills, head over there and check it out. Trust us, you don't want to miss out on this valuable resource. This podcast is brought to you by Harnish. First impressions matter, and your crew's appearance speaks volumes. Harnish Workwear helps your brand exude a commanding presence with custom branded gear that reflects the quality of your craftsmanship. Their H-Label program delivers premium work apparel personalized with your logo, colors, and details. It's more than a uniform, it's a walking representation of your brand. Clean, consistent, and built to perform. If you're ready to elevate your image and stand out from the competition, visit harnishworkwear.com and start building your brand from the ground up. Welcome to the Modern Craftsman podcast. Today we have on a special guest from Motif Media. So if you haven't noticed in the past couple of months, the podcast, our editing, our thumbnails, our YouTube is really taking a different shift. We're putting a fair amount of effort into that. But that is not because of Nick and myself. That is because of our new editor, Dave, who is the guest on today's podcast. So, Dave, why don't you quickly introduce yourself, a little bit about who you are, what you're doing, what your goal is for the podcast, and then we'll dive into today's topic.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. Yeah, I hope people have been enjoying the kind of shift in like the thumbnails. I'm having fun time with grabbing you guys and changing the style up and everything. But yeah, I'm Dave. I'm from Motif. I'm one of the editors. I do some other stuff too. But for those that don't know, that didn't see the Doug interview or interviews, you guys have had him on a couple times, yeah?
We have, yeah.
Yeah. So we do a lot of Motif Media. So we do a lot of media-based stuff, filming, residential, construction and doing the NS Builders stuff. So for people that are familiar with that, the site visits, lots of podcasting. So this kind of stuff. So that's kind of my realm right now is I'm trying to do my best by you guys.
Yeah. So Doug had always been editing the podcast and handling that. Nick and I basically want to be able to show up, record, and not have that much else to do with it, which still proves to be difficult from time to time. But Doug was always handling things. Obviously, there's a lot going on with Modern Craftsman behind the scenes with NS Builders and everything else. So when did you come on with Doug to start handling the bulk of what we have you doing at this point?
Oh boy. So probably for Modern Craftsman is like maybe 4 or 5 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah, he did a stellar job with setting stuff up. And then like, I just kept things the same way that he was doing them because, he's the boss and, but I asked him, I think the first time was when, I think the thumbnail was think small. Like you were talking about just like, reducing, you don't need to like go crazy with, all these grandiose plans. And,
Sure.
And I asked him, I was like, hey, can I make Tyler like really small? And then the text is above his head. And he's like, yeah, go have at it. And so that was my first creative freedom. So whenever that was, I think that was about 4 or 5 months ago though.
Yeah. And I think Doug, for the most part, is probably in the same page as Nick and myself, where we're absolutely fine to hand over the reins some, but it's tough to find somebody who wants to actually have that responsibility or be a part of this more so than, hey, we want to show up, we want to catch a paycheck, which I think has been really nice for you. And I know that you were apprehensive at first reaching out to me or feeling that you were overstepping your bounds with some of the freedoms that you have. But I know for Nick and myself, we've been super pumped to have you on board with what you're doing and pushing the YouTube and switching things up as far as content goes, keeping us in line, on task, in check. So it's been super nice for us. So I definitely appreciate that. What's your background in this industry? Like, is this what you went to school for? Is this what you always wanted to do?
So when it comes to media stuff,
yeah.
Okay, so when I was a teenager, I looked up to my brother, and he was like, I idolized him, and he was into photography, and so I started getting into photography. And then my dad said, "You're never going to make any money with that kid, so you got to do something real." So I let that go for 20 years. And the irony of that is, my dad had done photography, and maybe that's why he didn't want me to pursue it because, like, especially back then it was film cameras, and it's like, maybe you'll do a wedding, maybe you'll do some portraits or something like that, but it wasn't really feeding the stuff. Anyway, so I was out in California for a number of years. I'm originally from New England, but I was out there for 10 years and I had the opportunity in a graphic design realm. I was a graphic designer and there was a construction thing that was going on and we needed photos. And then the construction workers, they're swinging the hammers. They don't care about photos, but they're like, we need photos. And so, we were getting these like, iPhone pictures. iPhone's fine, but like the way that they were doing it is like they're swinging the hammer and like taking the photo at the same time, so it's blurry and whatever. And I told my boss, I'm like, hey, listen, can I just go out with my camera, which wasn't a stellar camera, but it was better than, and my job would be to go take photos. And so that's kind of how it was born. I went into design because I really liked Photoshop and video capture. And I knew that was a part of the graphic design sphere. But I have since shifted to like fully this. So it's funny how that kind of like you start to go down a path and meander.
What was the intent of taking photos for this builder? Was it for marketing purposes? Was it for clients? Like, why did they have you taking photos of work?
Yeah, this is a commercial. This was a municipality. I think this one was a roadway improvement project, if I'm not mistaken. And it was one of those, like, it had public funding, like taxpayer dollars.
Yep.
So they had to have certain things and like show progress. And there's also a CYA of that, the cover your ass exercise.
Yep.
And so it was that. And so it was part promotional, part insurance policy, essentially.
So you basically pitched me the idea for this episode, which I think is a really great idea, and obviously it's right up your alley. But it's photography, videography within construction, and why it's important, why it matters for builders. And like you said, there's the marketing aspect of it. There's the CYA, the cover your ass, to be able to communicate the quality of the work that you're putting out. And it's not just about being an influencer, right? You don't need a full-time staff to be able to do this, but we just kind of want to dig into a few of the reasons why photography and videography is so important for people like myself or like Nick, or just the construction industry in general.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why I wanted to bring this up was because, like, I was scrolling through Reddit and I'm seeing all these different questions, people asking, like, contractors, they're like, hey, can I just use an iPhone? Can I, do I need this? Do I need to buy a DSLR? And it's, to me, all that stuff is super simple, and it's really, you can use your phone. There's a few things that you need to know, and like these are some best practices, but depending on what you're trying to do, like, are you like one guy or a very small crew, and you don't have the resources to hire a whole team? Do you not need a whole team? I mean, not everybody needs, a whole team for like a 45 white oak project, let's say.
Sure.
And so it's kind of demystifying and adding that value of like, yeah, you can use your phone, and here's a couple things to know. In
an insurance perspective, right? How would you suggest kind of covering your ass from ensuring that everything's being done the way it needs to be done? Like that to me, this is where cell phone photos obviously are more than enough, right? Where you're just using a phone to document what's being done. How would you suggest builders going and doing that? Like, at what point during the job? What should the sequencing be like? Is there anything that they should look out for when you're looking at photographing in a job just from a protection standpoint? Yeah, so the most important thing is pre-construction. So get the pre-existing conditions and like everything. So let's say that you're, I don't know, redoing a dining room. Maybe it's just like a one little job. But you want to take stuff of like, where are you going on site? Are you going to have to bring your trucks into the backyard? Are you going to be putting your trucks on their driveway? So like, take full pictures. It doesn't have to be like every 5 feet or something, but you want to be able to, when the customer comes back and says, hey, there's a new crack in my driveway, that's because your truck was 10,000 pounds. It's like, that crack was there before. So yeah. That's, and it's one of those like, damn it, I wish that I did that. And I would say photos, but you could also take a quick video too. So you're taking the snapshots and just take the pre-existing conditions, and also take a video. And that's where, if you hold your phone like this versus vertical is only good really for like Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts, TikTok, whatever. This is good for everything. And this is horizontal or landscape.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Some people are only going to be listening. So you're holding your phone sideways. So you have that like normal TV kind of landscape image. That's so important. And then also not pinch zooming, like you pinch your screen and you zoom in, that degrades the photo, because what you're doing is it's just a digital zoom. So you're just taking what your image is and you're basically cropping it, and you want the highest res that you can get. So you just want to kind of like just move closer. So you zoom with your feet, as we say.
Sure.
But it's small stuff like that really helps. So the pre-construction and then post, at the very least, the post-construction.
Yeah, pre-construction for me is huge, especially renovating. I literally the project that we're on, it was a flip, and the driveway is a mess. The existing driveway, cracks everywhere. There's no sort of reinforcement in there. So day one, it was taking videos of the driveway. And it's a client I've worked for 15 years. It's the second house that I've worked on for her, but it's regardless of the relationship, I just want to protect myself. And you think of it, it's the same type of thing when you go to get a rental car, right? And they walk you around the rental car, they mark what's wrong with it, they take photos, they timestamp it, whatever needs to be done just to protect yourself. So when you bring that back, if there's an issue, you're protected. So yeah, pre-construction for me is huge. Post-construction also very important. I think communication plays a huge fact in that as well. But it's hard to argue with a photograph, and I know many times that I've relied back on photographs during a job, when I'm closing a job in, during roughs. I always, like, before we close the walls up, I'm always documenting everything that's in the walls, so that when we get to finish stage, when we're hanging cabinets, before we hang a photo, whatever it is, I know exactly what's in those walls. I'll even bring tape measures out and just get reference points for what's in those walls, just that I could document everything. And again, this is mostly for my own purposes. These aren't photos that are going to live on the internet. They're not going on my website. It's just to protect myself in some way, shape, or form. These are not pretty photos that I'm looking to market my work. But there is an opportunity, even with just an iPhone. I mean, I made much of my marketing through Instagram with just whatever iPhone I had at that point prior to using any sort of regular camera. And there's a lot of times that still everything that I'm posting these days is still just an iPhone. Like, do you feel that an iPhone is enough for what most people need to document their projects?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say yes. With an asterisk of it depends, of course. So it's like, depending on what you want this for. So if it's just a CYA, then yeah, you an iPhone or an Android or whatever with modern day ones, they're great. Don't use the pinch zoom. Like I said, that's one of the worst things. To that point too, like if you have a 1X, which is like your base, and you want to zoom in, if you have like a 2X or a 5X or something, that's an optical zoom. So that's fine. So if you're trying to get like an image of the roof or you know, like the eaves or something, and you're like, well, I obviously can't zoom up there with my feet, so just use that. But the phone in general, yeah, 100%. If it's supposed to be like a big portfolio piece, that I would say maybe try to get a better camera. But then again, it's not all about the camera. It's about so many other things, like lighting. Lighting is number one. You know, sensor size is another thing, but we don't have to get into that. It's fine on the phone if you have the good lighting.
So I've shot a handful of stuff that's been professionally lit, and it's insane the amount of time that it takes to do that. Or, I mean, I'm used to just shooting stuff on the fly. A lot of times the mindset is, right, people are looking at this on their phone. They're not watching it on TV. They're not even looking at it on a computer. They're watching it on a 2.5 by 6 inch screen. So how well does it need to be lit? But then I've been on jobs that are intended to be commercials, and the amount of effort that goes, it's like, here's the shot, here's what we're going to talk about. We have everything set up, and they're like, all right, now we need 45 minutes to light it. And they're just moving lights, bringing in different diffusers, covering stuff up, getting rid of shadows. It's insane the amount of time and effort that goes into lighting a space well.
Yeah, and it can get crazy. It can get nuts. But at the end of the day, it's really we're masters of light. That's what photography is just studying light, and then what box do you use to capture that light, and how do you kind of like frame the light or whatever.
Are there, like, for people who are looking to, hey, I don't have a marketing budget.
Yeah,
I want to get some nice photos just for my Instagram or my social feed, or I want to take some quick video on my phone. Before I do anything more to that, like from a lighting perspective, what are some things that somebody could look out for? Either, hey, like, use natural light, don't use natural light, this time of day is going to be best for you. Like, what are just some basic things, or are there resources out there that people could look into just to get the best out of what they're working with?
Yeah. So two of the number one things, natural light is king. And if you have it, depending on the look that you're going for, if you have like curtains, the sheer, so it kind of like diffuses the light a little bit.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's a really good way to start. And that way you don't have the hard light coming in. And, you know, golden hour is always good. Golden hour is, you know, as it's sunsetting and you get those like really nice yellows, but it really depends on what your, what mood you're going for. But natural light, number one. And then if you don't have natural light, I would try to have windows open as much as you can, just so you can have as much extra light in there. But if you're using work lights are kind of terrible in a lot of ways, because like they'll flicker. But depending on what if you're not doing a lot of video, then it's not really going to be a big deal. Hopefully, again, the asterisks. I
think a lot of the work lights are also very white.
Yeah.
Which, depending on what you're shooting, may, like, if it's not a white subject or a gray, those like bluish white lights can make other colors look absolutely horrible.
Oh yeah. It makes it look sick. But that's where you could, if you're like really on a budget and you're like, hey man, I have nothing for, like, I can't get any other lights or whatever, which you totally get. No construction worker wants to run around with, you know, aperture light in the back of their car. But if you use that light and you reflect it, instead of like having it shine on the couch, let's say, if you have it bounced up to the ceiling or against the wall, if you have like a blue wall, then it's going to add a little bit more of a blue cast or like a yellow, right? So it's not going to be as harsh of a sickly white.
Yeah, I feel like something changed with the iPhones. Definitely Instagram, where their color hues maybe a couple of years ago changed. Like, I feel that they always used to look better when you would bring in cooler temperatures, and now it's different. I feel like it's a lot warmer, and something changed. But I've noticed that it takes a little bit more effort to get those photos now to be the right color temperature for me. What I've lucked out with on this project that I'm working now, this porch project, that like golden hour that you're talking about, I feel like it normally, the project doesn't look great from the warmer tones we have with the wood, with the white and everything else outside. But when it, right before it gets dark, if I take photos, I'm like, yo, these look super dope. Like, but there's just a very small window from when, like, it's right when I'm cleaning up. So like, if I don't clean up before then, it just looks like a messy job site. But like, if I can clean up before that time, then I have like 10 minutes where I can go around and shoot the job, and it looks so nice. But it's insane, because the rest of the day I'll take a photo of the same thing, and I'm not editing anything. It's pretty much like, maybe I'll adjust some in Instagram, but a lot of them are just going right to my stories. But like, when the light is right, I don't need to do anything to them, and they look great.
Oh yeah, no, it's crazy. And I always want to say to people, like, don't stress on the light, and really don't stress on the light. I mean, get the image. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
But the right lighting is just so, oh man, it makes it sing.
Are there decent apps or software that you can use that somebody could invest in that's not over the top, just to post edit some of their stuff, where it's like, I don't have a background in photography, I don't understand how light works, but I could get some sort of program that's better than Instagram just to edit and post some of the photos that I'm taking? Yeah,
and I would definitely say don't edit on the platform on Instagram, because then you can't download. I mean, you could take a screenshot of it, but like, you've done it and you've baked it in for Instagram. But if you wanted to use that photo for your portfolio, then it's like, oh, hey guys, go to my Instagram and you'll see the stuff. I really like Lightroom. Now, Lightroom does have a subscription, but they also have a free version.
Yeah.
And it's super powerful. And so for me, I really like Lightroom because it lets me sync with my computer. And then also, especially on the computer side, there's a lot of ways that you can like organize stuff for, like, by job. You can add tags, meta tags. So it's like, oh, this is a Canton job, you know, and this is, you can even like, oh, this was Canton and this was the dining room, or, you know, whatever. And so in that way you could search for it later. That's my number one, but it doesn't have to be Lightroom. There's a ton of different apps. Even on Apple Photos, you have some control to edit, which you can get away with that really well. Like there's some creative filters and there's the auto and then like the just playing with sliders.
Yeah. Do you have like a go-to for that as far as there's a sequence that they basically have it laid out that you click from one to the next to the next? Is there a better sequence that you find works to go and edit something? Is it just case by case?
You're talking about
on photos or whatever. Like I kind of have a system for when I go through of what I like to edit, generally what works well for me. But a lot of times it's just, or even on Instagram, right? If you're just editing something to put on Instagram and you're not concerned about portfolio or being able to preserve that image or use it elsewhere, where it's like you're going to do this first, then this first, it basically walks you through that. But there's certain things that I never touch and certain things that I do. Do you feel on Apple Photos that there's like a go-to system that you have for getting a decent product with some of the edits that you can make in there?
Yeah. And I mean, it works for any Android device too. They're all going to have basically the same kind of slider system. My knowing what your style is makes a big difference. But like for me, I like a lot of my construction photos to be, usually what I'll do, knowing my phone, is I'll bring down the blacks a little bit. So like the shadowy areas get a little bit darker. Yeah. And then the highlights, depending on I'll bring up the whites just a little bit. So that adds a little bit of contrast. Rather than just going to the contrast slider and just bringing contrast up, you control like, oh, I like the whites up 2 points and I like the shadows down 10 points, versus a 1-for-1. Yeah. And then I'll usually bring up the shadows a little bit. There's the blacks, whites, shadows, and highlights. Those are my 4 main ones that I'll do. So the highlights I'll maybe bring down a little bit, and that's going to be like your skies or light bulbs or whatever is the brightest thing in the image. Shadows, I'll just bring those up. It might sound counterintuitive because you're bringing down the blacks, but the shadows up, but it creates a nice look that I like. Yeah. And then there's a temperature. There's 2 other things for color. There's temperature and then tint. So temperature is going to be white and blue, or I'm sorry, yellow and blue. And so if you want,
so that's like warmth on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. So you just bring that yellow slider up a little bit. If it's a little too blue, and it's like, oh yeah, that's getting pretty sweet. And then depending on the lighting, so this is where work lights or even whatever you're using, like what I'm using right now, there's usually going to be, and what your camera sensor grabs, your camera's going to by default capture a little bit more magenta or a little bit more green. And so that's a good way to like, it's a little too red. So you just slide it the other direction. But it's usually those 4 that I mentioned, the shadows, highlights, blacks and whites. And then I think for a lot of construction guys, if you add up clarity, just a little bit, just a touch of clarity or texture, both of those things kind of add some more definition. So like if you're showing, if you're not trying to show like a glowy, like beautiful dining room that's like, oh, look at how soft this is. And but if you're showing like a deck, that'll show more of the grain. You don't want to go crazy because if you go, it's just little bits. Just keep it simple because it's like subtlety is key with all this stuff.
So a lot of times when I go and edit something and I might get rid of some of those shadows. Mm-hmm. I'll end up adding, even on Instagram photos, I'm looking at it right now, I'll add some vignette, which like brings the shadows to the outside of the photo. So you can like still brighten up the photo some, but then get a little bit of a contrast, but it's probably not on the main source of whatever you're photographing. I think that's always worked well for me, where it's like if you don't have great light and you're trying to brighten it up some and you're adding brightness and then getting rid of some of the shadows, you can bring in a little more depth by adding some of that vignette, and it just kind of hits the edges of the photo, which works well just for like quick editing in even just like the Instagram platform. But I would suggest people just take photos of the same thing throughout different times of the day and see what looks good. Like you said, try with different lighting, turn the lighting around. In my living room right now, we're renovating, and the color just photographs terribly, but there are certain times of the day that it looks better. It's like a pinkish hue, and if you photograph it with the wrong light, it just looks like a really terrible beige. So it's like a very distinct time window that I can photograph in there that looks decent, and it has to be with natural light. Like without natural light, it just doesn't really look good at all. But I think people experimenting with light and moving things around, you have to take some time to do it. And I think that that's probably a challenge for most contractors, right? Like how do I convince a contractor in your mind, if they want to photograph something on their own, that they need to devote some time to it?
I mean, it depends on it's just kind of like swinging a hammer. It's, do you want to get better at pounding this nail in 2 hits? You know, you set it and then pow. I built a deck with my dad because I was a tradesman with him for a long time. And I was the first deck that I was part of, and he was a roofer and he did everything. So he would just go ding, pow, ding, pow. He'd just keep going. And I'm going there, ding, 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 ding. He's like, you're going to stop playing with it? You know?
Yeah.
It took me a while, but like now I can't do it in 2 hits, but maybe 3 or 4.
It gets easier, but I think that that's the same thing. I know I used to photograph a lot more. My social has taken somewhat of a different path now, but I would photograph so many details of my projects, and that'd be like my the point in the day where I was ready to start settling down and disconnect from work. It was just part of my routine to walk the job and just take some photographs of what's going on, what I did. I clean up. It was just part of the process. And when you integrate that into your day, right, where it's like, I'm going to clean up, everything's going to be nice and neat, I'll set some lights up and I'll take some photographs of the project. It was a non-issue for me. When it becomes hard is when I don't do it consistently and it just seems like it's one more thing to do, and then I'm not spending the right amount of time doing it. It's never been something that I've been able to just rush, right, where I'm just going to go and snap a couple photos and these are going to look great. It takes some time to be able to do and to get an eye for that. And I do think anyone can do it. I think that you have to spend the time doing it and get a feel for what it should be like.
Like you said, bringing it right to like, okay, it's part of cleanup. So I clean up and then I do it. But it's also, who's your audience? What are you trying to get out of posting? And so maybe bringing them into the cleanup process. So like maybe you don't have time and maybe you're just like, you're cleaning up and you do have your phone with your vacuum, you know, and it's like you're just taking an image and like trying to get this cleaned up. You know, your caption could be like, I'm trying to get this job cleaned up so that the homeowner has a nice place today, so they're not walking through sawdust. You know, so it doesn't have to be these glamorous shots is what I'm saying. And then the other piece of advice to kind of finish on, because I don't know if I answered your question fully earlier. If you take 3 shots of something, so you take the wide angle, which is the establishing shot, it's like we're in the backyard. So you take this, you step way back, take an image. Here's the house. Here's the deck that we're building. We're in the backyard. Then you get a little bit closer. Say it's your mid shot. And so okay, now we're just focused on the deck pretty much. And then you take your detail shot, your close shot, and you'd be like, I want to show the steps or the stringers or something that you're focused on working on. And like you have now 3 shots of the same thing, and you're bringing people into the story of what you're doing. And one of the things about that too is if you are focusing that fine, so if you're going to do the wide, medium, and close, you want to kind of do it from the same angle. So then that way it's basically like you're taking 10 steps forward, you take another shot, take 10 steps. So then the person knows they can follow that. And it's not like now you're 180 degrees or you're upside down or something. You could still do that, but you need to give them some
perspective.
Yeah.
When do you think it should be necessary for you or like non-negotiable to hire something out to get it professionally photographed?
If it's something where you're trying to add this to your portfolio so you can show people and say, you know, like I want more of these types of gigs, And and I want to make sure that, you know, people that see this, there's no question between me and Steve down the street. It's like, you know, like, yeah, we both have good photos because we're taking them ourselves with our phone, but like this guy knows how to light, like you said, you know, and or even just understands the light. And I mean, professionals are, this is what we live and breathe. I mean, like, this is just what I do. I love it. So
it's, I haven't gotten many jobs photographed in a while because I was using it really to market my business and to get more work. And then I got overwhelmed with work, not just because of that, but just the way that my business has progressed and what I'm doing now, that I wasn't really looking to market myself that much more. I haven't gotten anything photographed in a while other than just myself or editorial pieces that we're doing. I feel like I have enough opportunity with Motif and the other companies that I work with. But I used to be so excited for days we would go to photograph stuff, but then it takes so long between like the staging and the lighting and the framing and discussing if you should move this plant 2 inches this way, that I'm like, I can't be here anymore for this stuff. Like, and it makes such a big difference, but I don't have an eye. If I see it in the camera, you show me two things or you show me two photographs, I can tell you which one I feel looks better, but I can't frame it in real life that way. I just have to take a bunch of photos and then I can look back afterwards and say, okay, this one like compositionally looks good, or the lighting in this one is better, but I can't tell you how to get there. So while people are doing that process, to me, it just seems like it's just taking forever. And for what? But then when you see the end result, it's like, oh, okay, I understand it now. It does make such a big difference, but it takes a lot of time. Like, it's not a fast process.
Yeah, well, and photographers also know too how to get the best out of what you currently have. So like if you're even running gunning and you don't have lights, and I've done a lot of that on construction sites because it's like, oh, I got to jump down into the trenches and I just got to get this guy swinging the hammer, you know, and I got to jump back out. So I can't set lights for that, you know, I can't be in the way. But understanding your gear and, you know, having the right, you know, like the right lenses that get the most out of the situation, because there's certain lenses that are really expensive, and it's like, okay, well, I can shoot in low light, and that coupled with shooting in RAW versus JPEG, and now when I'm out and on my computer, then I can really push and pull those so much more and get the highlights, and, you know, the whole thing. And so knowing that, it's kind of like you had mentioned it might have been a midweek, or it might have been talking to Nick, but I think it was a midweek that you had mentioned, like basically the time to hire an accountant is like when it's costing you more, either in frustration, or it's like I could be out there doing more marketing, or I could be doing these other things and just like, or be with my family. I don't have time to study what, 24 mil versus 70 mil is. Like, what is that? Why do I care? And it's like, that's my language, so.
I look at it from a lot of times in a job when I don't have answers, but I'm looking to make progress. I need to make a decision to move the job forward. And I need to leave that door open a tiny little bit in order to set myself up for success in the future. And I think that a lot of times people with their photography and the way that they're shooting it, and a professional can do that, where it may not be ideal in every single way, shape, or form, but they're going to shoot that in a way that they can correct it in post and leave themselves some openings for how that's going to look best, even though lighting might not be perfect. Some of the staging may not be perfect, but I think that they're affording themselves an opportunity for the best product possible. So, assuming that you're taking a ton of these photographs, right? I'll look on my phone right now because most of my stuff is on my phone. But I have, I have 108,000 photos on my phone, not organized in any way, shape, or form. So let's talk about what somebody like myself could be doing on a daily basis, where I'm taking all of these phones or all of these photos on my phone and organizing them.
Yeah, so this is where Lightroom comes in again. I use Lightroom. I have hundreds of thousands of photos, and from different jobs, from different eras, and So when I import into Lightroom, and Lightroom is a subscription, there's other things out there that you could use that are going to, it's basically a catalog that you can also do editing in. But I really like the catalog feature of it. That's really the biggest reason why I use it. But if you hook up your phone onto your computer, let's say you have a Mac or, Android to Windows, it'll find like your iPhone and say, hey, do you want to upload these, or do you want to download these onto your hard drive? And, you want to have an external hard drive because your hard drive is going to fill up. At least that's what I've found. But when you're importing and you're at Canton and you say, is the dining room, right? So you can take your 200 photos or whatever you took that day, and then, or 2 photos, it could be just 2 photos. And, you put in the keyword section and you say like Canton, comma, Massachusetts, comma, dining room, comma, whatever makes it easy for you to remember in the future, like 5 years down the road, like, oh, I did a job in Canton. What was it? And you just do the little search and it'll pop up all your Canton stuff. And you'd be like, oh, that was a dining room, right? Okay, well, let me just type in dining room, and so you can really call that down. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, because if it's just living on your phone, it dies on your phone pretty much. At least for me. And if I don't upload them, then I don't know where to go really searching for them later. And it doesn't have to be Lightroom. That's just been my favorite. Lightroom, you don't have to get the full Adobe suite. I just want to clarify that, because Lightroom has a photography plan, which is way cheaper. And you can even do like, I think Amazon might do it, where you get like, you prepay for the year and it's like $120. So it's basically $10 a month. And I mean, when it comes to, that's $120 for, sorry, for the year. It's $120 for the year. And that's an investment. I think anybody. Yeah.
With the cost of everything today, that's a meal out. Yeah. All right. So I have an Osmo, and I struggle to upload it to Photos on Apple. Like, where should I be uploading all of that stuff? Or is it downloading? Uploading. Yeah. Downloading. So you download it to your computer. So the Osmo, for those that don't know, it's a stabilizer, so that you can just like walk and you don't have to do like any fancy footwork. You just walk and it's a gimbal. But DJI has pretty good capabilities of, you just plug it into your computer, and then it'll see it as a hard drive. Yep. And so you do that. You can just drag it onto a folder, or if you had Lightroom, you just say like, hey, look at the Osmo. Yeah, I want these photos. And then just save it onto a folder on your desktop.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the desktop. So that's a whole nother thing. But you can do it on your desktop. But for future proofing yourself, you want to create a folder, even if you don't use Lightroom. If you're just downloading this stuff right to your computer, create like a master client photo image archive. Yep. Right. And so you say photo image archive, and then you have a folder for Canton, and then you have a folder in there for dining room, or whatever, however you want to categorize it. But throw all that stuff in there. You can also keyword on Mac, at least. You can make keywords, so you could also do that. It's a little bit different of a process, and that might work totally fine, because then you could still do the search.
For a while, I was downloading to Photos, and it was like having issues importing it. So then I was having to pull out the mini SD card and put that in through the micro USB in order to download, because like it was freezing my computer trying to download things through Apple Photos. So then I started downloading them to a separate folder, but then I'm like, I don't know what the hell to do with these, and I probably don't want these just sitting on my computer anymore. So I'm definitely somebody who needs to take heed of these words, where it's like there's no rhyme or reason for any. It's basically like I'm gonna film something for the intent of making one piece of content with it, and then I'm never gonna use it again, which doesn't, like, I think that there's opportunity for far more, being that you're going through all of the effort to do that in the first place.
Yeah. Well, and that's another reason, again, why I like Lightroom. I'm not a Lightroom salesman, but I've had too much pain for trying to figure this stuff out over the years. But when you import into Lightroom, you can say, oh yeah, these 10 photos, whatever. You can say, rename them to this. And so the way that I do it is like Canton _, dining room _ date, and then dash whatever the image number was. So, when your phone takes like, it says IMG 4637, I leave that on there. So then that way I can always refer back. Like for you, right? If you were to hire me or Motif, you'd say, Dave, I really like number 4376. Then I can just be like, oh yeah, there it is. And you don't have to be like, oh, I like that one where you're kind of looking at the couch, but it's like this backward angle, like.
I definitely don't do a good job of organize. I don't know if it's me, but all right. So I go and I film this stuff with Fine Home Building. They record all of this content. Where are they downloading that to, and how doesn't that take them days to down? Like, I feel like I try and upload or download 6 videos to my computer, and it takes an hour to do that. How are people downloading all of this long form content in a reasonable amount of time? Is it my computer? Is it my internet? Is it me? A combination of the 3?
It's a number of things, but this is again why you want it. Not you in this particular case, but this is the benefit of having a professional. We have the right gear. So, like I have the right cable with the right port so that I can put that thing in and it's done in minutes versus hours. Yeah. With your phone, if you're trying to get it off your phone and you're doing like an airdrop, airdrop being something that you can do. Not everybody has it. If you have a Mac and you have an iPhone, you can do it. And it's just simple. It's just like share this to my, airdrop it to my computer. That's usually fairly quick depending on how how new your devices are. But yeah, I mean, if you're just plugging it in and you're just using a standard cable right into the computer, that's going to take a little while. Yeah.
Who knew?
Or SD cards. Yeah. I mean, even the SD cards have read write speeds. So you might have a bomb ass, hub that can read 10,000, gigabits per second, but your SD card can only do 50. So it's like, well, you're going to, and there's so many little nuances.
Where should I be using all of this content? Like, should I be focusing on social media? Should I be focusing on a Google page? Should I be hiring somebody to help build my website? Like, where should I devote my time and my efforts for all of the photography and videography that I'm investing in, either financially or from a time perspective?
As always, it depends. It depends on what your goals are, where you live currently, meaning like digitally where you live, because you don't want to jump on, if you're new to using social media or like for your business, you don't want to just try to do all of them. It's like trying to think of social media as a party. And it's like, oh yeah, I can go to Tyler's party and that's Instagram, right? So I can show up to Tyler's party and I can rock it out there. Or I can go to Tyler's party and stay there for 15 minutes. Then I can go over to Nick's party, stay there for 15 minutes. I can Doug's party, 15 minutes. And it's like, you're not really getting a good experience. You're just kind of like, hi guys, bye, So I'd say whatever your social is, whether that's a social media platform like Instagram, YouTube, whatever, or if it's Google Pages or Facebook groups are pretty popular for a lot of contractors. But wherever it is, just rock it and know what that is. It's hard to say know what it is. You can Google search, like what's the best kind of stuff for Instagram, let's say. But if it is like your Google business page, then you don't need anything super fancy, but it's just.
So that being said, do you feel that you should have the content in mind while you're shooting? Like I need, and obviously hiring a professional is a different story, but say you're just going to start with your phone and you get a microphone and you're recording video. Should you have an idea of where you want to be using that, or should you have some sort of idea in mind so that you can use that content for multiple places rather than, hey, my main subject, I want to populate my Google profile, but be able to use that elsewhere? Like, how do you go into that with an idea or an understanding of what you should be capturing for what platform?
So you definitely want to have an idea of where you're going to post. It's like having a design for a deck. If you just start swinging the hammer and throwing wood down and be like, I don't know, this might work. You don't put in the wheelchair ramp that you need, or like it comes off square, you know. It's Instagram. If you're only going to post to Instagram, just shoot vertical stuff, because it really rewards that. Even you can post everything as a square, but Instagram really likes having things vertical because then you get the most real estate. So it kind of stops the scroll a little bit more. But not everything is like that. So, you know, it's, you know, YouTube is obviously it's more of a video focused thing, but knowing the party you're going to go to, knowing the platform, that's number one. But if you have the ability to, like, talking about landscape, right? I try to, I don't want to overcomplicate this, but if you want to be able to use this maybe in the future for everything, I always go landscape, and I always will shoot 4K, which is overkill. Like you had said, like, we're just looking at this on your phone, so you don't need 4K. But what 4K lets you do is when you're in landscape mode, you can say, like, you know, maybe it's Tyler that's, you know, I'm taking a video of you and you're working, hammering away or whatever. I don't have to get as close to you to do the vertical, because I can, in the edit, I can crop that in and it'll still be really good quality. It'll be the 1080, right, that we want.
That's where I struggle a lot of times, where I know I should be filming in landscape, but the editing on the back end and cropping what I want out of that, if I'm setting up a camera and then maybe it's following me with the gimbal to a certain extent, the limitations of that. But if it's not, how much time do I have to spend on the back end to make sure that I'm actually cropping that in the right area, where it's like, oh, it's so much easier just to film it vertical and set it up once, you know what I mean? Where like this is probably just going to live on Instagram in the first place. So for me, that's really tough, being that I'm filming something myself, to film it in landscape and to film it in 4K, and then to be able to edit on the back end when I'm not moving that camera. It all makes framing the shot really difficult.
Yeah, so 4K gives you that extra flexibility in the edit, but at the end of the day, if you're trying to just get your friggin' hammer swung and you're like, I just need to set this thing up, and if I get what I get, great. Like, don't let it slow you down.
Yeah.
And if it gets to a point where it's like, I'm not liking the stuff that I'm making and I need somebody else, that's another reason to call a professional, to really kind of get you past that point. So you don't even have to think about the camera.
But that also doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be any faster. It just means that you're not going to be handling that aspect of it.
No. But so if you were to hire somebody this is another thing, that's familiar with construction photography or videography, it's another beast. If you have somebody, I've worked with photographers in the past that first of all, they don't have an OSHA certification, which is important depending on the situation that you're in. So like commercial photography, you may need the OSHA certification, but at the very least, understanding, listen, we all know that everybody always wears PPE, right? Nobody ever doesn't wear PPE, but having a photographer that understands, this actually isn't, he should be wearing earplugs for this. So I'm not going to post that picture, or I'm not going to capture that because I don't want to have any questions.
Yeah.
You know, and there's ways to take a photo of, like, you might be on the roof and you might be harnessed in, right? But my photo might not show the harness. And so there's that context of, like, that gets posted to TRG and somebody is like, hey, he's not being safe. You know, he's going to fall off the roof or whatever. And you know, there's people out there, but having that pro to know, let me just move 3 feet this way and kind of tilt. Now I can see the harness.
Sure. Like,
that's really important. Yes. It might not be any faster, but it will more than likely come up better.
I mean, you guys do a nice job, and Doug does a nice job. Paul does a nice job of not disrupting workflow.
Yeah.
But it's different, right? When I go and shoot something that's for a commercial or an editorial piece where it's not necessarily scripted, but they have a creative in mind that they need to stick to, and they have a paying client, and you're looking to deliver a certain message, it's a very, very slow, comprehensive process. And when you have somebody like Motif come on that understands, hey, these are subcontractors we're working with, you can't interfere with their work, you can't slow them down, they need to get a certain amount done in a day, they make it a pretty seamless experience, which is nice. And they're able to still tell the story and fit the creative and whatever's necessary for that job. But there's a huge difference between those two. You know, I'll go and shoot something for 4 days that would have taken me 45 minutes to do, because you're just setting everything up just so, and multiple cameras and different angles and voiceover and everything else, where with you guys it's like, no, I'm still going to get my 4 days worth of work done. We're going to tell the story a different way, a more streamlined way, without making you stop and redo something and hold it and say it this way and turn the tube that way and don't cover up this while you're squirting that out. And I'm like, all right, I just kind of want to get something done at this point.
Yeah, well, and that's the whole thing, is like, you're trying to hire us to make your job easier, so you don't have to think about the stuff, and you know that it's good. And it's like, that's the thing, like, having somebody who understands, listen, I'm a creative, but you don't work around me. You know, there aren't that many professional photographers that I've met. It's a huge shout out. You mentioned them, Doug and Paul. I love working with them.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying that. Like, there's so many times where I'm editing something and I'm like, there's a shot that I tell Paul this all the time. He's such a masterful DP, director of photography, where like, he's got the drone coming down through the trees and he's got it tilting up and turning at the same time. And like, I know how that shot happens because I've done it, but it's like, that is a hard shot to make happen. And I'm like, it makes my job easy as an editor to like have such cool shots.
I think Paul has brought a very cinematic perspective to the content that Nick's creating, which some people love, some people hate. I think it's really cool because I think it brings a really unique flavor to our industry, and it feels so much different, and I feel that it really conveys the art behind what we do, which is really cool. But I know some people just want to see like sawdust and hammer swinging. But I think that the cinematic stuff that you guys are creating over there is super cool, especially for our industry, and I feel like not that many people are doing it, and it just shows how much of an art form what we're doing, as well as what the photography and videography can be when it's married to the construction industry, which I think it's a really unique take.
Yeah, well, and it also really helps that Nick and Doug are so communicative of like, this is what I want. So they're real partners with like, I really want this. This is what I want. So this is the vision. And Doug's like, yep, this is how we're going to do it. And like, he's there and he's directing stuff and like, so.
It's cool. I don't think Paul likes me. I'm always screwing around on site. He's so serious about getting stuff done. I'm like, what if I run and jump and slide across that table? And he's like, what are you doing here? Go back to New Jersey.
I will say that there's some times where there's some amazing shots and I'm like, oh, this is it. These guys are walking up the steps and they're carrying a rug or something, and they'll look over at the drone or whoever, or at Paul videoing, and they'll look over and they'll like, give the peace sign or something, and I'm like, oh, you just ruined the shot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I get it, but it's like, oh, that would have been tremendous for exactly, the background and the whole thing. Yeah.
It's all right. What are you gonna do? All right. Yeah. So somebody who wants to get going with this, right? They want to start documenting their projects to cover their ass. They want to start documenting their projects for marketing reasons and also portfolio. Like what's a list or a proper sequence that you see? Either it's, hey, get yourself this, get yourself that, do this once a day, be consistent. Like what's a Cliff Notes version of what they should be doing? Yeah.
So use your phone because it's what you got. Don't stress on getting, one of these big mirrorless cameras, right? So just use your phone, especially because that's what you're familiar with. You already use it every day, so you know how to hold it. You're comfortable with it. Get your wide, medium, and close shots, and figure out whatever works for you as far as organization. So does that mean that you put it into Apple Photos or just onto your hard drive, but try to format it some way that you can search for it later? Make it part of your daily routine or weekly routine. Maybe it's just, at the end of the week and you have things cleaned up or whatever process it is. Just make it part of the routine so that you always have something and that you can look back later. Definitely do pre-construction because it always shows you marketing or CYA. It shows you this is what it looked like before. This is what it looks like when we're done, or it looked like when we're done. Like look at that transition. Because there is a lot of times where small things like caulking at the baseboards, people aren't going to remember that, I didn't have caulking in there before. There was just this gap. But that caulking before you paint between the wall and the baseboard, that's a huge, it makes it look so much cleaner. So if you did the pre-construction, it might just be painting, right? You might just be painting the room. So just taking the pre-construction and the post-construction. So those are the phases there. And then just share your work, whether that means sharing it on, your Google business page or Instagram or whatever. It doesn't have to be every week. Just stay fairly consistent, or just use, let's say, Instagram as like your portfolio, and it doesn't have to be stressful.
No, I think that's great advice. I think a lot of times as builders, with everything that we have going on, there's the whole paralysis by analysis as well. Whether it's photographing a job, whether it's dropping new content, whether it's putting out a course, it's reaching out to a new designer, architect, interior designer you want to work for. We come up with all these reasons why we shouldn't, or that we're not quite there. And it's like, hey, if you're 80% of the way there, put it out there. You can edit it later. You can change it later. You can redo it later. But you have to get the ball rolling. You have to take the first step and then just work up from there. Adapt, learn, evolve, grow. To me, that's the biggest thing. It's like just get off your seat. Take one step at a time. Start putting it out there, and you will evolve and you will grow, and you'll be able to see the progression in your work.
Yeah, and done is better than perfect. That's a big thing. Yeah.
That's tough for a lot of us too.
Oh yeah. But it's a skill,
If you're waiting for it to be perfect, it's gonna be a long time before it goes out there.
Yeah.
Sweet, Dave. Well, I appreciate all the insight.
Yeah. I'm glad to be on, and if anybody has any questions or specifically about the photography side of stuff, they can throw them in the comments, because for those that don't know, I do comment. I respond to comments periodically. If it doesn't, I'll say -Dave, because it might be you, it might be Nick. But if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to field them to some degree. I mean, I don't know how many people are going to comment, but if there's...
If you guys are commenting on YouTube, social, and it's a -Dave, it's a verified comment. It's been approved.
Yeah, that's
a lot of times he's like, I don't want to answer it when they think that it's you or it's me, and he's reaching out to us, asking us for answers, or probing us to get on there and respond to comments. So if you do see an answer from Dave, it is definitely a verified or legit answer, but he's definitely part of us at this point. So I appreciate everything you're doing. I know Nick appreciates, Doug, everyone. It's been a breath of fresh air. It's been fun to have somebody on board who's very excited about this. I think that it really uplifts all of us and gets us all engaged, because week in and week out, it's been a long time that we're doing this, and sometimes you become stagnant and you're not growing, and it's the same thing over and over again, and bringing a fresh set of eyes to revamp things and shake things up gets us all excited all over again. So pumped to have you be a part of the team and definitely take some stake and some ownership in this, and excited to see where all these things go. But if you've enjoyed the recent podcast over the past 4 months, 5 months, if you've enjoyed any of the Modern Craftsman YouTube, what we've been putting out there, that's all thanks to Dave. So make sure you, in the comments, give Dave a thank you.
Well, I couldn't do it without you guys, obviously. So,
All right, man. Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate everything that you are doing for us, and we'll have to get you back on again soon.
Yeah, for sure, man. If anybody has questions, we can always turn it into another episode at some point.
Sweet.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Thank you.